Hello everybody, and welcome to this week's vlog. You may know from watching previous vlogs that I am something of a science fiction fan, but as far as the science fact part of things goes, I'm also deeply interested in that too, and in particular in the rather murky grey area that exists between science fiction and science fact. Call it, if you will, science faction, which may very well be what it is, because there are a number of intriguing conspiracies that abound, sort of rooted in sci-fi, in the paranormal and various other things. And I wanted to explore some of them in this vlog, because some of them get a lot of attention, and it makes me wonder if there might not be something to them. First of all is something called HAARP, that's HAARP, which stands for High Altitude Auroral Research Project. Now, if you've never heard of HAARP, it's a research station in Alaska which is built on a large natural gas field that it uses to generate power, and it's an antenna array, if I recall correctly, which is involved in some way in testing, experimenting really with radio waves and the Earth's outer atmosphere. However, there are a fair few people that believe that the HAARP project is a little bit more than just a research tool. For a long time, people have been talking about using weather as a weapon. Now, if that sounds creepy, probably because it is. But the basic idea behind this conspiracy is that HAARP is not just a sort of noble scientific centre of excellence, but actually a rather more sinister tool for holding people, shall we say, to ransom by using the weather. In other words, creating thunderstorms and severe conditions and what have you, and potentially creating the rash of strange sky sounds that have been reported and heard all around the world for really quite some years, although they do predate HAARP by quite some time. So, is there anything to it? Well, on the one hand, who would gain from controlling the weather? Now, if it was positively done, then, you could do things like turn the Sahara into green farming country, for example. But I suppose if you are sort of thinking slightly more cynically, sort of more on the lines of what people are capable of if they're not being the best that they can possibly be, is there must be someone that probably has at some point thought how powerful I would be if I could threaten someone with, I don't know, a bad harvest if they didn't do what they were told. Now, as with all these conspiracies, there is no proof that HAARP is doing anything of this sort. But there have been a lot of videos on YouTube, and I've seen a fair few, which show strange thunder and lightning and things in the sky that don't look quite right. Difficult to pinpoint what it is exactly, except that they don't entirely look natural. Were they HAARP induced? No way to know. On now to my second conspiracy, and this one includes aliens. Now, it's not Roswell, it's not UFOs that have been covered up, although to a degree I suppose you could say it has roots in that area. No, this is something a lot darker that doesn't get spoken about quite so much as UFO sightings, and that is this theory that says the governments all around the world are engaged in a kind of genetic research project involving aliens of the type that we're very familiar with seeing in films, the greys, ones with the very, very big eyes and small mouths. And apparently what's going on is that in conjunction with these aliens, and maybe others as well, governments are basically hybridizing aliens and humans to create human aliens that can kind of move among the population without being identified or known. To what end is just not clear. And there are a few places in the world that are allegedly connected with this. One of them, which is probably quite well known actually, is the Dulce base, which is said to exist in New Mexico in the US, a large underground military base underneath the Archuleta Mesa in the middle of the desert, which contains among other things, are level with bits of bodies in jars, human, alien alike. Sounds a little bit like a ghastly horror show, and allegedly that's what it is, because people who've seen it, have leaked out, obviously completely incognito. But no one's ever proved that this base really exists, and people generally tend to deny things like that, so they don't. And there's another one in the UK, would you believe? The UK is supposed to have a lot of these secret underground bases. One of them at Peasmarsh is in Wiltshire, is in an area that you wouldn't think of would have anything as sinister or dark as this. But it's said that a local lab in Oxfordshire is involved in sort of recruiting people from a young age, doing things somehow with their mind, and kind of intertwining their genetic makeup, I suppose, with aliens, tissue and DNA and whatever you, and then kind of experimenting on them throughout their lives without them really ever knowing about it. Now, that is the subject really of an X-Files episode, but not to put too much light on it. If something like that really were going on, imagine the backlash that would happen if it were revealed. My third and final conspiracy is that of chemtrails. Now, we've all looked up at the sky at aircraft passing by and seen the vapour trails that come out of their exhausts, which generally tend to linger in the sky for a couple of minutes and then sort of fade away. Well, chemtrail theory, and this is one that is quite widely documented online, is that every time you see, or in a lot of cases when you see an aircraft flying past, ejecting stuff from its engine at the back, it might not just be exhaust. You see, because the belief is that they are putting some kind of chemical into the atmosphere, which seems to do two things. First of all, create very thick cloud cover, almost intentionally, as a way to kind of make people feel trapped somehow, though again, why you'd want to do that, I'm not sure. And also to potentially influence the way that people think and feel who are underneath it, and I mean literally in a chemical way, to the point where you actually could, in theory at least, could manipulate a person's entire biological makeup by exposing them to a chemical. I think it's aluminium or zinc oxide or something that people talk about quite a lot that ends up, in chemtrails. Now again, this is one of those things where you think, okay, if this were really going on, and it seems to be, it's pretty well believed in, and I believe in things that can't be explained, and I do think there are shady factions in the world somewhere that are sort of plotting and planning these things, but whether they're actually doing it, I don't know. What is interesting though, one particular case, is I think this was after the G8 summit one year, and someone took a photograph above either Worthing or Brighton, and the sky was thick with clouds, so thick that it was impenetrably so, and it looked just slightly wrong, didn't look like it really belonged there, that kind of thing, and again, it's difficult to put your finger on it, because you could just say it was natural cloud, and fair enough, but it's a pretty spooky idea, I think, anyway, that people are doing this sort of stuff to us without us actually knowing about it, if it's true. That's all we've got time for this week, I'm afraid. Thank you very much for watching, as always. We'll see you again next week, so whatever you're doing this week, have a good one, won't you? Until then, take care. Bye-bye for now.